Thank you for joining us on TOS Television Network. I'm Adesu Alsi, and this is Africa Now. More than a week after she was sworn in following the death of President John Magufuli, Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan has reshuffled her cabinet. Among them are career diplomat Liberata Malmula, who now takes over as Foreign Affairs Minister, replacing long-serving Minister Professor Palamagamba Kabudi, who returns to his previous Justice and Constitutional Affairs portfolio. Mugulin Chemba, who was the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, now becomes the Minister of Finance, filling the position that was left vacant following the appointment of Dr. Philip Pago as Vice President. Other changes included the appointment of new Chief Secretary Hussein Yahya Katanga, who is Tanzania's ambassador to Japan. President Samia said a major reshuffle was not necessary since most of the current ministers were recently sworn in. President Samia announced the cabinet changes during the swearing-in ceremony of the new Vice President. The International Criminal Court, ICC, has upheld the acquittal of Ivory Coast ex-president Laurent Gbagbo on charges of crimes against humanity. He had been charged in connection with violence following a disputed election in 2010 that left 3,000 people dead. The violence came after Gbagbo refused to accept that he had lost a disputed election runoff to Ouattara in 2010. The 5 months of violence that followed were described as some of the most brutal clashes the country had ever seen. Prosecutors said Gbagbo clung to power by all means and charged him with 4 counts of crime against humanity, murder, rape, and other forms of sexual violence, persecution, and other inhumane acts. The former president and the first former head of state to go on trial at the ICC said the charges were politically motivated. Prosecutors argued that there were procedural errors in how the original verdicts were delivered and insisted that thousands of documents and 96 witnesses presented during the trial proved their guilt beyond reasonable doubt. But presiding Judge Chile Eboy Osuji said the appeals chamber, by majority, has found no error that could have materially affected the decision of the trial chamber. The appeals chamber hereby revokes all remaining conditions on the release of Mr. Gbagbo and Mr. Blair Gode as a result of this judgment, the judge declared. The former president was in court alongside ally and former youth leader Charles Blair Gode, who was accused of leading a militia backing him. They were both acquitted in 2019, but the prosecution had appealed what was seen as the shock decision to clear them. After the ruling, Gbagbo, who is 75 years old, gave the thumbs up at the War Crimes Court in The Hague. Outside the court and in Ivory Coast, there was dancing and singing in a pro-Gbagbo suburb of the main city of Abidjan. This case was seen as a test of this institution's ability to handle high-profile figures. In an attack on a village on Wednesday in Ethiopia's Oromia region, 30 people have been killed by gunmen, the latest outbreak of ethnic violence to challenge the federal government. Residents report that the gunmen arrived at after 9 p.m. local time and forced residents to gather outside in a group and shot them dead. Survivors, local authorities blamed the attack on the Oromo Liberation Party, OLA, also known as OLF Shein. The OLF is an opposition party that spent years in exile but was unbanned after Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed took office in 2018. Although OLA has been weakened by measures taken by the government together with the community to ensure the rule of law, out of a feeling of desperation, it continues to carry out attacks on civilians, a statement from the Oromia regional government said. On Wednesday, 120 pro-Haftar fighters from a rival Eastern force were released, by Libya Western authorities on Wednesday. This is the latest move towards reconciliation in a United Nations-backed peace process aimed at ending years of violence. They were released following a ceremony in Zawiya, 45 kilometers east of Tripoli. The ceremony took place at a sports ground in Zawiya under heavy security. In a speech, Abdallah Al-Lafi, vice president of the country's new presidential council, welcomed the move and called for further reconciliation and rebuilding. The men were fighting for the 107th Brigade under the command of Eastern military strongman Khalifa Haftar, who in April 2019 launched an offensive to seize Tripoli from a unity government. The fighters had been captured near the western city of Zawiya that same month. Libya has been ravaged by bloodshed since the assassination of revolutionary leader Muammar Abu Minyar al-Gaddafi in a NATO-backed 2011 revolt. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called on the Security Council on Wednesday to give the world body UN missions, UNSMIL, a clear but flexible mandate supported by additional resources to support its ceasefire monitors who would work alongside Libyan observers from the rival camps. At least 90 inmates on Wednesday escaped from a prison during the demonstrations in Harper City in the southeastern country near the Ivory Coast border. On Tuesday, scores of women involved in several days of violent demonstrations who claim the lives of their children are in danger forced open the central prison, leading to escape of the prisoners. Between 20,000 and 30,000 are reported to be involved in the protest. Police spokesman Moses Carter told the television station the demonstrators broke into the county's prison compound in search of an alleged killer of a motorcyclist, resulting in the escape of inmates. He said the police found it difficult to contain the situation because of the number of people involved, between 20,000 and 30,000. He said the rioters also set alight the home of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, who hails from the region. This caused Liberia's President George Weah to impose a night curfew on the coastal county of Maryland to help contain the violent protests and restore order. He said in a statement that in order to keep the peace and to ensure that law and order prevails, a curfew is hereby imposed throughout Maryland County, adding that the curfew will be strictly enforced by the police, who will be supported by the Joint Security Forces. He assured the people of Maryland County that the killing has claimed the urgent attention of the government and will thoroughly, promptly and fully investigated. The perpetrators will face the full weight of the law, he said. This is your digital first from African News Television. You're watching Africa Now. Up next, the United Nations statement on Somalia election standoff, the Central African Republic armed clashes, and more after the break. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. The United Nations Security Council on Wednesday has expressed concern over Somalia's impasse on holding new elections. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield, the United States top UN diplomat, said. U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield said in a virtual press briefing following a closed-door session that the 15-member Security Council noted ongoing efforts to find agreement between leaders of the federal government of Somalia and the federal member states on implementing a revised electoral model. They expressed concern over the ongoing impasse and called for Somalia's leaders to engage in a constructive dialogue at the earliest opportunity without precondition to resolve outstanding issues, she said. President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed's 4-year term ended last month without a successor, and Somalia's parliament was supposed to elect a new president on February 8, but the exercise was delayed because new lawmakers are yet to be picked. United Nations experts in statements on Wednesday have expressed alarm at the growing recruitment of foreign private military and security companies by the Central African Republic government and the grave human rights abuses by Russian mercenaries. It had also raised concern over the close contacts that these companies and their staffs maintain with the UN peacekeepers in the country. Russia's first sent security contractors to the Central African Republic in 2018. Since then, the contractors have accompanied national forces as they retake towns from the rebels, Central African Republic's government has said. The contractors include members of Russia's Wagner Group, the UN experts said. Although private military companies are illegal in Russia, Wagner has in recent years played an increasingly important role in realizing the Kremlin's overseas ambitions, observers say. The working group deplores the lack of investigations as well as the lack of determination to identify those responsible for these abuses. The experts called on the Central African Republic's government and its international partners to abide by the obligations under international law, and in particular to hold all perpetrators of serious human rights violations and abuses to account. The country is plagued by armed clashes between the rebel coalition led by ex-President Francois Bozize and the National Army supported by the UN mission there, and Russian military companies. Thousands of people have died in the Central African Republic since 2013, and more than a quarter of the population of 4.9 million have fled their homes. Still on the United Nations, Secretary General Antonio Guterres, in his message on International Day of Reflection on the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, observed on 7 April, called on countries to draw on Rwanda's example of justice, resilience, reconciliation, and the possibility of progress, where more than 1 million people were systematically murdered in less than 3 months. Also, after suffering unspeakable gender-based violence and discrimination, Rwanda's women now hold more than 60% of parliamentary seats. Around the globe, people are threatened by extremist groups determined on boosting their ranks through social polarization and political and cultural manipulation. These extremist movements represent the principal security threat in many countries, he said. He added that the global health crisis has profoundly affected the entire spectrum of human rights in every region, further fueling discrimination, social polarization, and inequalities. To prevent history from repeating itself requires countering these hate-driven movements, efforts redoubling and forging a common agenda to renew and reinvigorate collective actions are needed going forward, the UN boss said. Namibia has condemned in the strongest terms the killing of dozens of innocent people in the town of Palma and neighboring areas of Mozambique. This is contained in a statement by the Mozambique's Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, on Wednesday. Our government extends its heartfelt condolences to the families of those who lost their lives in this hideous attack. The security situation in Mozambique has been a source of concern for the last few years, and the Southern African Development Community countries had resolved to deal with this matter, but the COVID-19 pandemic had stalled any meaningful engagement, she said. The SADC is engaging with the government of Mozambique to ascertain the best way to support the country, and work has been ongoing in this regard, Nandi-Ndaitwah said. She said they hope that in the near future, cooperation in this regard will be finalized to restore stability and security in Mozambique for the sake of peace in the region. Nandi said they have not received any reports of Namibians killed in these attacks thus far. A new IDA financing of $375 million has been approved by the Board of World Bank Executive Directors on Tuesday to support the implementation of the second regional Sahel pastoralism support project. This is to improve the productivity and resilience of pastoral production systems in the Sahel. Pastoralism is a key driver of growth that provides livelihood for more than 20 million people in the Sahel. The new project will support this important activity to improve the resilience of pastoralists and agro-pastoralists in selected areas of the Sahel region, including in Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, and Senegal. Perhaps, too, will pursue investments to establish more robust animal health systems, increase access and governance of natural resources, support pastoralists' peaceful mobility along the local and cross-border mobility routes, and increase income. The new project will continue to target responses to pandemic-related challenges. It will also improve pastoral livestock value chains, facilitate livestock trade, support regional market integration, and will further fill gaps in strategic market infrastructure along regional trade corridors. It is estimated that about 13 million people, including the youth, and of which at least 30% are women, will directly benefit from the project's activities. And that is Africa Now. For more updates, visit our website at www.tostvnetwork.com. Also, follow and like our social media handles on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And remember to subscribe on YouTube. Do stay with us to enjoy more programs on TOS Television Network. My name is Adesu Alsuyi. Thank you for watching.